We do not stand still and are developing for you, so we bring to your attention a new voice and a new story.
32-year-old Eliza Matthews, having established a thriving career in finance, found herself consistently falling short of her father's expectations. The forthcoming annual family gathering loomed with an uncharacteristic sense of dread. To mend fences, I had gifted him an extravagant car, hoping for a change in dynamics. However, the document concealed in my purse would soon upend everything. By nightfall, I'd come to comprehend why my father never acknowledged my worth. Before delving into my narrative, I wish to know your viewing location and kindly ask you to hit like and subscribe if you've ever confronted someone blind to your value. My tale may inspire the strength required in similar situations. Raised in a prosperous Boston suburb, our household presented an idyllic image to onlookers. But beneath those closed doors, tensions ran deep. Richard Matthews, my father, transformed his humble real estate venture into a multi-million-dollar conglomerate. Regard for success, esteem, and reverence were his top priorities, outweighing familial ties. From my earliest recollections, he wasn't the type of father who participated in school plays or assisted with homework. Instead, he was the stern critic, commenting on my B-plus grades that should have been A's, questioning why I wasn't selected as team captain, and reminding me that second place was just first loser. Caroline, my mother, contrasted him significantly, being warm and affectionate when he wasn't around, yet transforming into a different individual in his presence, nearly retreating into herself, never challenging him, never defending us children when his criticism became excessive. I didn't comprehend the strange influence he had over her, or the way her gaze would shift towards him, even for simple questions about meal plans or weekend activities, until I was much older. My siblings and I matured within this intricate family setup. My elder brother, James, being 3 years senior, was inarguably our father's favorite, often referred to as the golden child. He excelled at football, made the honor roll, dated girls from prominent families, and later joined our father's real estate business upon graduation from his alma mater. Things seemed to fall effortlessly into place for James, or so it appeared to me. He seemed to instinctively know what pleased our father, whereas I consistently got it wrong. My younger sister Sophia, 2 years junior to me, somehow navigated the intricate system of our father's approval more effectively than I ever could. She wasn't an overachiever like James, but she possessed a natural charisma and an uncanny knack for sensing the mood of the room, knowing when to voice her opinions and when to remain inconspicuous. She assumed the role of family mediator, occasionally managing to lighten father's mood when it turned somber, often comforting me in my room following harsh criticism sessions by reassuring me that things weren't as dire as they appeared. However, I was never satisfied with what I had. I excelled academically in high school, earning a full scholarship to Cornell University. Yet he insisted I attend his alma mater instead, perceiving my decision as a rejection of his legacy. During college, I held down 2 part-time jobs while keeping up my grades. During breaks, he'd express doubt about why I wasn't interning at more prestigious companies. After graduation, I declined his hesitant job offer for his company, realizing I'd always be viewed as an undeserving hire. Instead, I ventured to New York City with only 2 suitcases and determination, sleeping on a friend's couch while applying to every financial firm available. After securing an entry-level job at Goldman Sachs, I was met with the comment, "We'll see if you can last a month." Remarkably, not only did I survive past that initial month, but I persevered for 8 years, climbing the ranks without relying on family ties or favoritism. My determination was driven partly by passion, but also by a strong desire to disprove him. Just recently, I'd been promoted to senior investment strategist, making me the youngest individual in the firm's history to hold this position. The salary increase was considerable, enabling me to buy my long-desired apartment in Manhattan while still having money left over. With these savings, I decided on what I believed would be a grand gesture, purchasing a brand-new Mercedes S-Class for my father as a Father's Day gift. In my mind, this present would finally make him recognize my success and approve of me. The car was almost equivalent to a year's salary, but I justified the expense by thinking it would be worth it to hear him say he was proud of me at last. Reflecting on it now, I can see how desperate the compulsion for validation was, how it dictated every significant choice in my life. My accomplishments were less about personal satisfaction and more about weapons in an unresolvable battle for his affection. The car I bought wasn't just a luxury vehicle, it was an attempt to buy what every child should receive without asking: a parent's unconditional love. Every year, the Matthews family reunion coincided with Father's Day, serving both as a celebration of Richard Matthews' paternal role and our familial bond. This year would be no exception, except that I had decided to make an impression by purchasing that extravagant luxury car, a sleek black Mercedes S-Class, loaded with all the high-end features my father once admired at his country club friend's residence. As the date drew nearer, my anxiety soared to unprecedented levels. I invested 3 weekends in finding an appropriate ensemble, aiming for an image of achievement without overdoing it, a blend of sophistication yet not trivial, which seemed to be the paradoxical standard set by my father for businesswomen. I ultimately chose a tailored navy blue dress from a designer he admired, accessorized with understated gold jewelry and shoes that were pricey but understated. The repetitive ritual of preparation felt pitiful as I engaged in it, the futile routine of someone still striving for approval at 32. As I prepared to visit, memories of past reunions surfaced, each one tinged with his disapproval. When I was 16 and won the state mathematics competition, he questioned why I wasn't focusing more on debate as math people are easy to find. Upon graduating college, summa cum laude, his only remark was that my chosen field was unstable compared to real estate. My initial bonus at Goldman Sachs sparked his contemplation if finance was merely an elaborated form of gambling. My first promotion led others to speculate if it was due to fulfilling a gender quota. Nothing I accomplished was ever seen as purely merited, instead, overshadowed by his doubt. However, this year introduced an extra layer of complexity that had severely shaken my sense of self 3 months prior. A well-known genetic testing service, which I used out of curiosity about my origins, produced an unexpected outcome. The genetic indicators didn't match being Richard Matthews' biological daughter. Following the initial shock and denial, I discreetly sought a more conclusive test, securing DNA samples from his hairbrush during a fleeting visit home. The results were clear, now sealed in my handbag. A potential game-changer I was yet to activate. The revelation cleared up many things. My long-held sense of alienation within my own family, the unacknowledged minor physical disparities, the incomprehensible distance from a man who displayed affection to his other children. I suspected he was aware, had always been, and this understanding tinted every encounter we'd ever shared. On the eve of the gathering, I drove my new Mercedes to my parents' home in suburban Boston, arranging delivery at a nearby dealership first. I orchestrated the unveiling meticulously, planning for mid-afternoon when Mother would be at her garden club, ensuring a secluded moment for this conciliatory gesture. Father answered in his customary business casual attire on a Saturday, slightly irritated by the disruption. "Eliza, you're early. The reunion isn't until tomorrow," he remarked, glancing at his watch as if I'd overslept an appointment. "I know, Dad. I had gotten your Father's Day present ahead of time and wished to present it to you privately," I shared, my heart racing as I passed him a compact box revealing the Mercedes emblem on its car key. He accepted it with his customary polite indifference towards obligatory gifts, his countenance changing to surprise upon recognizing the logo. "Is this some kind of jest?" he inquired, and I directed him towards the window front, where a pristine new car glimmered in the driveway. His face displayed authentic astonishment, then something akin to delight, but it swiftly transformed into his customary rational demeanor. "This is extravagant, Eliza. What are you trying to demonstrate?" he asked, yet he was already heading for the front door, key in hand. "Nothing," I falsely claimed. He received a significant promotion and wished to express gratitude in an unusual way. He inspected the vehicle, as if appraising a potential investment, asking specific questions about its financing and insurance. Despite the car's acclaimed handling, he mentioned concerns over its steering during a short drive. Instead of displaying it in the driveway for guests to see, he parked it in the garage. His appreciation was routine and quickly followed by a criticism about unnecessary spending. This undermined my thoughtful gesture. That night, I contacted my friend Taylor from my hotel room, holding back tears as I shared the frosty reception. "You're right," Taylor responded, displaying anger on behalf of someone who had heard too many similar stories. "Return the car." I rejected the proposal, holding on to the belief that tomorrow would bring change. Perhaps in front of others he'd acknowledge me. "Make sure you don't show him that test," Taylor cautioned before ending the call. "Unless you're ready for a nuclear disaster," I assured her, but the envelope stayed tucked away in my bag, a concealed weapon I was hesitant to discard. The afternoon of Sunday rolled in with beautiful June weather, sunny and breezy, as if the surroundings were colluding to create the facade of a harmonious family gathering. I chose the longer route to reach my parents' mansion, using the drive to practice convincing replies for anticipated queries about my personal life, career progression, and the absence of a husband or children at 32. My knuckles turned pale on the steering wheel as I navigated onto the well-known driveway lined with maple trees, already half parked with luxury cars owned by extended family and my father's business acquaintances, regularly present at ostensibly private family events. A Mercedes, the one I'd given him, was prominently placed near the front entrance instead of its usual garage spot, strategically positioned for incoming guests to notice. Taking a deep breath, I adjusted my dress, double-checked my makeup, and walked towards the imposing front door with the self-assured stride I'd honed in boardrooms filled with men who underestimated me. My father greeted me warmly, his eyes shining as he hugged me, commenting, "You look stunning, dear," before her customary remark, "Your father's in the back garden with the Peterson group." As if forecasting a weather update, the spacious entrance hall was already bustling with relatives. In the customary blend of genuine family members and honorary relatives handpicked by my father, who were considered part of the Matthews tribe, Aunt Linda, my mother's sister, moved towards me, exchanging air kisses and firing rapid inquiries about my romantic life. Meanwhile, Uncle George extended a robust handshake and bellowed, "Here comes our Wall Street wizard," a remark I knew would grate on my father if he overheard it. Cousins, second cousins, and family friends circulated in familiar patterns, repeating the same conversations with slight modifications year after year, everyone adhering to their assigned roles within the Matthews family production. My father's arrival was as meticulously timed as anticipated, striding in from the garden accompanied by 3 business associates, all chuckling at something only mildly funny, yet treated as uproarious because of the speaker's wealth. He scanned the room, granting nods and brief greetings to several guests before setting his gaze on me. A hint of recognition flashed, momentarily tightening his lips before he nodded, as if greeting distant kin, heading towards mother for a whispered comment. No special welcome for me, the eldest daughter who'd recently given him an automobile worth more than many yearly wages. I feigned ignorance, chatting with cousin Rachel about her medical residency, yet the familiar bite of dismissal still stung. Mom appeared beside me soon after, offering a tender touch to my arm. "Dearest," she said, eyes hinting at both gratitude and worry over the lavish gift. "Your father mentioned you bought him a car. How thoughtful." The Stevensons were next on the agenda. They recently returned from a financial conference in Singapore and are seeking your opinions. This is typical of mother, constantly smoothing over social awkwardness, contriving situations for family interaction that should occur naturally. Things were tardy, as usual, with his grand entrance accompanied by his perfect wife Rebecca and their 2 impeccable children, receiving the long-sought paternal hug I've been trying to earn. "Son, when did you decide to upgrade the new car?" he inquired casually, and I stared in astonishment as my father patted me on the shoulder, praising the purchase without mentioning the gift or his role in it. Sophia stepped in before I could react, wrapping me in a sincere hug that lasted long enough to convey her empathy. "I learned about your promotion," she softly exclaimed, employing a nickname from our shared past that was seldom used now. "That's fantastic, Liz. Truly trailblazing," she whispered. Her genuine sentiment felt soothing, yet it starkly underscored the chasm compared to our father's apathy. As hors d'oeuvres were passed around by hired staff, I spotted my father guiding a group of his colleagues towards the front driveway, animatedly gesturing. Through the large bay windows, I observed him showing off the Mercedes, opening doors, highlighting its features, his face radiating a pride I had never seen directed at me before. "He's been doing that all morning," Sophia mentioned, materializing beside me with a glass of wine, which I eagerly accepted. 3 distinct tours for different groups of his associates. "Mother told me you purchased it for him." "That was incredibly thoughtful, Liz." I took a sip from the wine, watching as my father moved to the driver's seat, inviting one of his colleagues to enjoy the passenger side luxury. Generosity wasn't my aim, I confessed softly. All I craved was for him to perceive me as accomplished, deserving of recognition. "You might think it's pathetic," Sophia touched my arm gently, "but not pitiful. However, Liz, you must realize," she paused, selecting her words thoughtfully, "Dad will never fulfill your desires. It isn't due to a lack of worthiness on your part, but because he is incapable of it, especially with regards to you." Her words struck me forcefully, not because they were fresh insights, but because hearing them acknowledged by someone else brought the dynamics I'd lived with my entire life into sharp, painful reality, in a way my internal musings never had. The weight of the paternity test in my bag seemed to multiply. The sealed letter, a ticking bomb I both yearned to open and dreaded detonating. The pre-dinner period echoed with the standard rhythm of gatherings at Matthew's family home. As everyone moved to the formal living room adorned with uncomfortable antique pieces and decor chosen by mother, yet accepted by father, in the one domestic space where he held dominance. I deliberately placed myself on a window seat, slightly detached from the main circle of conversation, sipping my second glass of wine while scrutinizing family dynamics. With fresh perspective, I felt a sense of genetic estrangement that fostered an almost anthropological distance. Naturally, James held court, detailing his latest property deal, a struggling shopping mall he intended to convert into luxury condos. His partners found the initial investment risky, but he believed they overlooked its potential, receiving a nod of approval from our father seated on his leather armchair throne. "That's typical Matthew intuition," father declared, beaming, spotting opportunities when others see setbacks. "It runs in the family." The irony was not lost on me, as the perceived weight of the envelope in my purse grew denser with every reference to our shared bloodline. The discussion inevitably steered towards me as James concluded his self-praising speech. "Eliza," Uncle Robert commented, sincerity in his tone, "I hear you've advanced at your company. Senior investment strategist? Quite remarkable for someone your age," he added. Before I could respond, father cleared his throat. "It's a good starting point. The financial industry can be unpredictable, as always. Unlike owning something solid like property," he addressed James, shifting the topic to real estate. "Tangible assets can withstand market fluctuations. They last through generations." His casual dismissal still smarted despite my expectation of it. The calculated redirect back to James and his real estate holdings. My division surpassed the market by 22 points with a 30.8% return during turbulent times last quarter. And my risk assessment model, which I created, is now company-wide. However, my father responded dismissively, "Just numbers on paper. Wait until the next economic downturn to see how it fares." He then switched topic, asking his associate about zoning changes in the Cambridge corridor. As I left to get a drink, I met Sophia in the hall, who had just checked on her husband tending to their children. She whispered, "Ignore him. I heard from Michael's cousin in finance that your model is quite impressive." It seemed revolutionary to her. Her validation comforted me, yet I acknowledged the pitiful nature of still yearning for such affirmation. As I moved towards the bar in the dining room, I could hear my father's voice emanating from his connected study. The door slightly open. "The car?" "Yes. Quite an improvement from the previous one. When you work hard and create something from scratch like I have, you deserve these luxuries." The voice belonging to Walter Peterson, my father's long-term business adversary and occasional partner, was heard in response. "Richard, ever the humble one. Your daughter Eliza mentioned she bought it for you during our earlier conversation. She said something about her promotion. It seems she's making quite a name for herself in New York." A short pause occurred before my father responded, each word carefully selected. "Indeed. Well, the girl has always been eager for recognition. The truth is, her success is due to the opportunities I provided. My children attended private schools, cultivated connections in college, and gained a solid business acumen from my teachings. Her newfound driving is merely evidence of her applying the lessons I imparted." The dismissal of my achievements, their revision as due to his influence despite his constant criticism, stirred within me an intense, almost shattering anger. The dialogue proceeded, with him boasting about pushing Eliza harder than the others, claiming credit for accomplishments he'd previously disparaged. In the grand hallway, James intercepted me, displaying an unusual seriousness. "Eliza," he said quietly, "may I speak with you?" He led me to a peaceful corner near my mother's cherished orchid collection. "Father told me you've been questioning Mother about her college days. You took me aback with your straightforwardness. In reality, after the DNA test, I had innocently asked about my mother's past before marriage, searching for hints about potential relationships, assuming my questions were discreet. However, I'm merely trying to understand her better," was my cautious response. Women of that era rarely got chances to shape their identities prior to marriage and childbirth. James scrutinized me with a gaze similar to our father's, the family resemblance striking in ways that now seemed like further proof of my exclusion. "Regardless of your intentions or the message you're trying to convey through extravagant presence and intrusive questions, please stop. The family has its structure, its balance. Don't disturb it with whatever drama you're creating." His arrogance mirrored our father's so flawlessly that I almost chuckled. "Balance? Is that what you refer to as this poisonous pecking order? The disparity in which one's achievements are lauded while another's are belittled? I'm not concocting this, James. It's merely clarity dawning upon me. He moved nearer, whispering to evade notice. Our father has been the architect of everything we possess. The Matthews name holds value due to him. Your high-profile job in New York, your fashionable apartment. They all trace back to the platform he laid. Show some acknowledgement and gratitude for once. Before I could retort, our cousin Rachel arrived, sensing the unease. Is everything all right here? Aunt Caroline is searching for both of you. I believe dinner is being called. James swiftly donned his public smile, transitioning effortlessly into the role of the obedient son. Simply conversing with my little sister. Discussions about work. Nothing significant. As he departed, Rachel softly touched my arm. You know, my mother often says, your father favors unfairly, as if it were an Olympic event he's keen to interfere with. In essence, I find your solo achievements truly amazing. Her silent encouragement almost shattered my carefully built facade. For years, I'd been persuading myself that the issue lay in my perspective, not reality. Having someone else recognize the situation felt strangely both validating and destructive. The dinner bell rang, signaling for everyone to proceed towards the formal dining room. I hesitated, my fingers tracing the envelope in my bag, weighing choices, consequences, possibilities. A part of me wished to depart instantly, to escape this pretense of family harmony, to shield myself from the certain pain the night would bring. Yet another stronger, possibly more self-punishing part resisted, set on facing this confrontation, determined to finally tackle a lifetime of rejection with the tangible proof of its origin. I verified one last time that the test results were securely enclosed within the envelope, and then I squared my shoulders, preparing myself for the anticipated event as I advanced toward the dining room. The formal dining room of the Matthews always reminded me of a symbol for our family, with its imposing mahogany table capable of seating 20 people yet retaining an uncomfortably impersonal chill. The portraits of ancestors scrutinizing disapprovingly from the walls and the elaborate place settings that emphasized aesthetics over comfort, much like every other aspect in my father's meticulously crafted domain. Mother had gone above and beyond with the table decorations, crystal glasses reflecting light from the chandelier, fresh flower arrangements evenly spaced, name cards elegantly written, designating each guest their prearranged rank within the family order. My card was located as expected at the bottom of the table, positioned between my cousin Rachel's spouse, met only a couple of times, and one of father's junior business partners, strategically isolated from significant dialogue. James and his kin held prime spots close to father at the table's head, with Sophia and her husband acting as shields between the inner circle and less important relatives. Mother was stationed at the opposite end, symbolizing her family position accurately. Technically equal, but remote due to the table's length, connected yet detached. The opening dish appeared synchronized, waitstaff setting down refined appetizers of seared scallops with microgreens before every guest in unison. Father stood up, glass of wine in hand, effectively silencing everyone without uttering a word. He greeted family and guests at our yearly gathering. His words delivered with practiced charm, his public persona meticulously honed to a glossy luster. Yearly, I'm struck by my good fortune for creating not just a thriving enterprise, but a heritage symbolized by my kin. James returned a proud nod, while Sophia offered a demure smile before slipping past, treating me as if I were part of the wall decor. A warm greeting to this year's Peterson group, he continued, acknowledging his professional peers. Prosperity tends to draw more of its kind. The toast proceeded, with father praising James's recent business growth, Sophia's community board appointment, and concluding by suggesting that family success is derived from adhering to established routes rather than needlessly challenging traditions. His gaze finally lingered on me, conveying a clear message. During dinner, father guided the discussion with tactful prompts and direct queries, keeping topics centered on real estate markets, local politics where he had power, and occasional sports conversations that showcased James's past athletic successes. When mother tried to bring up my recent promotion during a pause, father swiftly redirected the conversation. Turning to financial markets, Henry, what do you think about the Fed's latest indications? He effectively wiped out her attempt without providing any recognition. By the time fish was served, the usual pattern was evident, with father occasionally posing sharp questions at me, each meant to undermine rather than engage. You deal mainly in domestic investments, correct, Eliza? Isn't it restrictive given the potential for global expansion? Or, I heard your promotion followed the Davidson account. It was fortunate that James introduced you to William Davidson at last year's charity gala. Each remark was carefully crafted to minimize or attribute success to family connections, which I had deliberately distanced myself from. Maintaining a pleasant and professional demeanor honed in hostile boardrooms, I resisted the emotional provocation he seemed intent on triggering. I am father. My international division integrated my risk assessment model last quarter, and the Davidson account emerged from a blind pitch competition without any introductions. My feedback was delivered with practiced ease, although Sophia's sympathetic wince at each exchange suggested empathy for the familiar family dance. Its predictability making it painful. The main course, an overly elaborate beef Wellington, demanded attention for several minutes, offering a brief respite from the conversational minefield. Dad opted to uncork another costly bottle of wine, his intake escalating noticeably during the meal, an unsettling trend Mom monitored with anxious glances. James leaned towards him to whisper something, receiving a dismissive gesture in reply. As the coffee and dessert were brought out, Dad's gaze returned to me, the alcohol weakening whatever restraints he usually maintained. "Eliza," remarked Mrs. Peterson with kind curiosity. "Richard mentioned you're still unattached. What a stunning, accomplished young lady. The men in New York must find you intimidating." Before I could craft a diplomatic reply about prioritizing professional growth, Dad intervened. "Eliza has always been more interested in proving herself than in constructing something," he commented, contemplatively swirling his bourbon. "Some individuals pursue achievements to fill other gaps. Compromise only seems necessary, something the Matthews women have historically grasped better than she has." Her casual criticism struck with practiced accuracy, suggesting my professional triumphs were merely making up for personal shortcomings instead of laudable accomplishments in themselves. The sharp intake of breath from my mother was audible even from where I sat far away. "Richard," she started with unusual firmness, but he continued as if she hadn't spoken. "Maybe if Eliza had taken a greater interest in the matches I introduced over time, rather than dismissing them as dull or traditional, she wouldn't be single at her age." Each word was chosen deliberately to inflict maximum damage. The airing of my private decisions under the guise of parental concern instead of the harsh criticism they truly were. The familiar pressure mounted behind my eyes. The desire to escape from the table, struggling against adult composure in maintaining dignity. Taking a calculated gulp of water, I observed that my hand remained unwavering amidst the emotional upheaval beneath. "I acknowledge your interest in my personal success, Father," I responded calmly, utilizing every negotiation skill I'd ever acquired. "However, as you frequently remind me, Matthew's focus is on outcomes, and my achievements are a testament to that." A heavy silence descended upon the table, relatives who had witnessed similar scenarios in the past busily examining their dessert plates, while Father's business companions became intrigued by the room's design details. The tension in my chest swelled with each heartbeat, symbolizing a lifetime of these instances. These public embarrassments masked as family care, these calculated attempts to diminish my identity and accomplishments. The envelope in my bag seemed to vibrate with power, a last resort I had vowed not to utilize. With dessert plates cleared, I understood plainly that the course I was on was unsustainable, that persisting in trying to gain approval from a man biologically conditioned to withhold it had become a self-harm I could no longer endure. As coffee cups were being refilled and liquor proposed to end the grand meal, Father slightly pushed back his chair, a gesture universally recognized by the assembled family as a prelude to one of his off-the-cuff speeches, a custom that had evolved over years of family gatherings initiated by Matthew. A hush immediately descended, conversations trailing off mid-sentence, cutlery carefully set down, everyone's focus instinctively shifting toward the patriarch. Father stood, brandy glass in hand, his expression assuming the benevolent authority he adopted for these instances of public oration. Just before we scattered to the garden for our yearly family photo, he commenced, his voice echoing with a tone that suggested one accustomed to controlling gatherings. "Let me acknowledge my pride in what the Matthews family has been constructing together." He gestured broadly, incorporating business partners as honorary members of this assumed dynasty. "A family is akin to a business. It's an enterprise, necessitating vision, leadership, and individuals who grasp their roles in fostering joint success." His gaze swept the table with practiced ease, seeming to make eye contact with everyone while actually connecting with none. As I scan this table, I'm struck by how fortunate I am to have children who enrich our family. They are building a lasting legacy. He turned towards James, slightly elevating his glass. "James, your business acumen continues to amaze not just me, but the entire Boston development sector as well. The Riverside Project embodies the progressive, visionary style that sets Matthew's projects apart from less inspiring endeavors. You have not only applied the wisdom I've imparted, but elevated it to new heights. James acknowledged with a modestly disguised pride, the favored offspring receiving his deserved acknowledgement. Later, James turned towards Sophia, his feelings warming even more. And Sophia, your ability to juggle family duties with community leadership demonstrates remarkable maturity. Your contributions to the Children's Hospital Board have added real luster to the Matthews name, reminding us all that genuine achievement involves giving back. Your parents and I are immensely proud of the family you're nurturing and the values you embody. Sophia offered a sincere smile, though it was slightly uneasy under the limelight, as she is more accustomed to facilitating others' recognition than receiving her own. Prepared for the inevitable, I faced the subtle exclusion, the weighty silence where my name should be, the polished tactic of implied praise that conveyed criticism without needing to voice it. Yet, what ensued was something more unsettling. A slow sweep of his gaze eventually found me, the narrowing of his eyes hinting at the calculated words he was about to speak. As I pondered my children's achievements, he continued, his voice subtly changing. What might seem like thoughtfulness to others was actually a prelude to an attack, disguised as reflection. He paused dramatically, taking a slow sip of brandy, the dramatic pause heightening the tension. I'm proud of all my children, he declared, raising his glass higher. And for a fleeting instant, I felt a foolish spark of hope, soon doused. Through his speech, only the defeated man at the table felt the sting of words sharp as knives, followed by a moment's stunned quiet before awkward laughter filled the room. Most thought it was an inside family joke, not realizing it was a harsh public criticism. I could feel my face flush hot, then grow cold, leaving me numb as every gaze at the table fell upon me, showing a mix of embarrassment, pity, and morbid fascination. He later acted as if he joked about the weather. Some people measure success by titles and paychecks, by shallow accomplishments that look impressive on paper but lack depth and longevity. Real success comes from preserving family traditions, from growing upon established foundations, instead of consistently trying to prove one's worth at the cost of collective power. The evasiveness of some people didn't fool anyone. The target of his words was clear as crystal. My mother's countenance turned utterly pale, her fingers devoid of blood on the napkin, as James looked self-satisfied and Sophia appeared mortified. Cousin Rachel reached across her spouse to touch my arm silently in solidarity, but I scarcely noticed the gesture. All my awareness narrowed to a sharp focus on the man at the head of the table who had just affirmed what the DNA test had already revealed. I was essentially different from them, not fully belonging to this family in his view. For 20 seconds that seemed like hours, I stood frozen, feeling the tangible sensations of shame with clinical detachment, the flushing face, the constricted throat, the quickened heartbeat, the surge of adrenaline as the fight or flight response coursed through my body. Moments of comparable incidents flooded my mind. A never-ending series of public corrections, covert belittling, accomplishments redefined as mistakes, all piling up to deliver the decisive message that I was inherently inadequate, unworthy of the title I bore. A title that recent genetic science showed wasn't truly mine. As father ended his speech with an empty platitude about family unity, something inside me shattered permanently, snapping the last string connecting the child yearning for approval and the woman who suddenly perceived, with crystal clarity, the futility of this lifelong pursuit. The feel of the envelope in my bag changed from a burden to liberation, its contents no longer a source of shame, but a tool opening the door of false assumptions. Throughout my life, the room was taut with discomfort, anticipating my response, perhaps hoping for tears or a swift departure, a recurring ending to our familiar family drama. However, I experienced an unusual tranquility, a sense of determination solidifying around a decision that seemed inevitable since the arrival of the test results. Without much forethought, I found myself standing up, emotion so composed and decisive it captured everyone's attention, conversations pausing abruptly as eyes turned to me with various expressions, from curiosity to anxiety, especially those who had witnessed my past family confrontations. My champagne glass remained untouched on the table, its unraised state a clear message. I carefully straightened my dress, finding an unexpected serenity where chaos had been before, as if I'd navigated out of a storm and into its tranquil center. Thank you, Father, for your enlightening words, I started, my voice ringing without strain, the polished demeanor I honed in boardrooms proving useful in this unforeseen instance. For 32 years, I've striven for approval that was never forthcoming, adjusting to standards that continually altered as I neared achieving them. Today, I finally comprehend why. The room fell quiet, a heavy silence that heralds significant events, my mother's face etched with worry while my father's expression grew ominous. Recognizing this narrative didn't adhere to his anticipated script. In a deliberate and light manner, considering the gravity of what followed, I shared that I graduated at the top of my class from Cornell, established a career without any family connections, and recently became the youngest senior investment strategist in my firm's history, hardly fitting the label of a failure. However, in Richard Matthews' world, success isn't defined by objective accomplishment. It's about aligning with his particular vision, mirroring glory instead of creating one's own. I calmly reached for my purse, fully aware that every action was being closely watched, as the obedient middle child stepping out of line was an uncommon sight. I bought you a car worth more than most people, but in your world, success isn't just about what one achieves. It's about fulfilling specific expectations and reflecting glory back onto you. A year, I proposed to father, whose face hardened at negotiations unfavorable to him, not because it was needed or deserved, but because I held on to the naive belief that a grand action might one day mend the enigma separating us for my entire life. From my wallet, I pulled an envelope with paternity test results inside, now almost ordinary given the heavy data they carried. For 3 decades, I've blamed myself for your lack of affection towards me, similar to how you treat James. And Sophia, I've contorted myself into various forms, trying to become whatever would finally win your approval, never realizing that the issue wasn't my actions, but my DNA. From my spoken words, Mother's face lost the last bit of color, while James stiffened with quick awareness. I carefully positioned the envelope right in the middle of the table, my actions calculated and precise. For you, Father. Happy Fathers, I concluded quietly, imbuing the paternal title with all the irony the situation warranted. Without seeking a reply, I left the dining room, maintaining an upright posture, my stride unhurried, ensuring the grace that had been taken from me during the entire evening remained intact. The surprised quietness persisted until I reached the entrance hall. Then the flurry of various discussions. Questions merging into incomprehensible din ensued. I moved forward outside without pause, the evening breeze feeling refreshing against my warm skin. The path to the driveway lit by decorative lanterns that cast pockets of light in the deepening twilight. The Mercedes was parked exactly where Father had placed it, strategically for best visibility, its sleek black exterior gleaming under the house lights, a representation of what I should have been saving for myself instead of purchases. The choice wasn't intentional so much as unavoidable. My fingers found the spare key fob hidden in my purse, and with a mildly inappropriate chirp, the remote unlocked. I settled into the driver's seat, the new car scent tinged with a faint hint of Father's cologne, a nostalgic olfactory echo of his brief ownership soon to vanish. From behind the windshield, I observed figures at the dining room windows, their shadows animatedly gesturing, as family drama unfolded upon my exit and disclosure. The engine sprang to life with costly precision, the dashboard lighting up warmly, seemingly indifferent to the profound events transpiring, treating this journey as just another routine drive instead of a decisive break from 32 years of emotional bondage. As I backed out of the driveway, I spotted the front door swinging open, my father's silhouette in the light, clutching an opened envelope, his mouth seemingly calling out my name, muffled by the quiet growl of the engine meticulously crafted in Germany. As I sped off, the symmetry was striking. The extravagant car he flaunted to colleagues, now discarded, mirroring his lifelong efforts to erase my existence. This act of deletion resonated with the narrative, reinforcing a conscious decision to reclaim myself and my worth. Just as I no longer expected gratitude that had never been offered, I also let go of the Matthews estate in the rearview mirror, shrinking in size and grandeur with each passing second, mirroring the waning emotional grip it held over me. The sense of lightness in my chest wasn't happiness, too intricate and tinged with sweet yet bitter undertones for such a basic term, but rather an unfamiliar feeling of liberation, of sudden freedom from the gravitational force of paternal approval that had shaped my path since time immemorial. The Mercedes moved smoothly in response to my steering as I journeyed away from the familiarity of my childhood neighborhood, each curve increasing the separation between the person I used to be and the person I was morphing into now. I nearly reached the highway on-ramp when Sophia's call came through on my cell phone, her name illuminating the dashboard screen, followed swiftly by James, Mother, various cousins, digital testaments to the turmoil left behind. I muted the ringtone but didn't fully shut off the device, a fragment of me yearning to observe the aftermath. Even if I wasn't ready to confront it head on, driving towards Boston instead of returning to New York, I cast one last look in the rearview mirror as my father sprinted onto the road behind me, his face distorted into an emotion I hadn't seen before. Something raw beyond anger, a realm I couldn't instantly define. The distance was too vast for audible words, yet the scream echoed from his body language alone, his arms raised high in a display of such primal intensity that he seemed momentarily alien. No longer the calm patriarch who had orchestrated decades of emotional manipulation. The image etched itself into my mind as I sped away, a symbol of the massive shift that had just transpired. The intricate family story fractured beyond repair by 3 pages of scientific evidence and a singular moment of undeniable truth. 30 minutes after checking into a hotel in downtown Boston, my phone showed 17 missed calls and 29 unread text messages. Like an electronic blast, I set off before departing. I set the room key on the desk, discarded my heels, and then scrutinized the communications, beginning with Sophia's texts, which transitioned from puzzlement to confusion. What happened? What was in that envelope? To worry. Liz, please call me. Everyone is panicking. To facts. Dad is acting strangely. Mom has barricaded herself in her room. James is threatening legal action regarding the car. My mother's voice messages started calmly, but quickly turned anxious. The initial message was a gentle, "Eliza, please call home when you can," but the 5th message was filled with raw emotion as her voice cracked. The result seems incorrect. There might be an error. Could we talk about this as a family? James sent only 2 messages, both warning of legal action unless I immediately return Dad's possessions and retract your offensive claims. The discrepancy in my siblings' responses was predictable, mirroring their long-established roles within the family dynamic. From the hotel bed, I held my phone, feeling both physically and emotionally detached from the reunion, providing a unique perspective to process events clearly. The paternity test revealed what a part of me may have subconsciously suspected for years. Richard Matthews was not my biological father, and the emotional distance he'd maintained throughout my life stemmed from knowledge he carried but never acknowledged. Impulsively getting the test revealed through a leisure genetic testing service, I found that my supposed paternal genetic indicators didn't match, leading initially to shock but eventually a sense of explanation for a lifetime of feeling alienated within my family. With the newly exposed information, our carefully crafted family image began to crumble in real time, as decades of deception started to collapse under the weight of scientific evidence. The most telling reaction came about 2 hours later, after I'd showered and changed into clothes from the overnight bag I'd packed just in case the reunion turned out to be intolerable, an action that now seemed prophetic. My phone rang with Sophia's number, and I needed to hear at least one family member's voice to verify that the earthquake I'd caused was indeed real, not just a product of my own mind. "Liz," Sophia whispered, implying she was calling from a private space amidst the house full of relatives. "Are you all right? Where are you?" Her concern in her voice was palpable, threatening to shatter my newly acquired calm. "I'm safe." I replied vaguely, "What's going on there?" She sighed deeply. It was pandemonium, a total breakdown. After your departure, Dad read the letter at the dining table in full view of everyone, then erupted into a shouting fit. Mom turned ashen upon seeing it. They vanished into Dad's study for about 10 minutes. The room fell silent with shock, and then Dad, unable to find you, went berserk, realizing the car was gone. I've never seen him so upset, Liz. Never. The objective account of the events allowed me to maintain emotional detachment, viewing the situation more like a business case study than my real life crumbling apart. Have Mother moved to their room and refused to speak with anyone, even James? The visitors departed swiftly following this incident. As one might expect, Dad has been making phone calls in his study for the past hour, and James mentioned something about a legal action concerning the car, which appears insignificant compared to our current situation. Sophia lowered her voice. "Is it true, Liz? The test results? Are they authentic?" She spoke without judgment, typical of her mediating character. I affirmed, "Yes, I discovered," after a genetic service identified inconsistencies. "Richard Matthews is not my biological father." Uttering the words to a family member made them suddenly tangible in a way that prior private knowledge had not. "Do you know who it is, then?" she inquired gently. "The examination merely verifies a non-match with the hair sample I supplied for my father's brush." In discussing this, I stated, "The technicalities are simpler to discuss than the emotional repercussions. However, considering the timing and her response, it appears to be someone from before my father married my mother. Sophia remained silent for a brief while, before inquiring about something that suggested she comprehended the predicament with her typical empathy. For how long has he known? Was her question, which pierced right through to the heart of the matter. The fundamental betrayal wasn't the biological revelation, but the decades of emotional retribution for a situation out of my control. I responded confidently, he has known since our entire life together, which shocked me as well. This clarifies everything, Sophia. Every criticism, every comparison, every unattainable standard. He wasn't attempting to make me better. He was punishing me for being. The truth of our realization remained unspoken, requiring no further evidence to substantiate it. I must leave, Sophia stated abruptly. James is ascending the stairs, and I can't risk him discovering our conversation. She pleaded, please send me a message confirming your safety wherever you are. And Liz, regardless of what transpires next, I love you just as much. This doesn't alter anything between us. Her words resonated within my heart, the unsuspecting affirmation shattering the self-imposed insensitivity I'd adopted since departing from home. Following our conversation, I shifted to the hotel window overlooking Boston Harbor, where the city illuminations danced on the dark waters, a scene both comfortingly familiar and strangely foreign, much like my own reflection in the glass. In that city dwelt the man who, through deliberate lack of affection, had defined my childhood, and perhaps also the enigmatic figure whose genetic makeup was mine. The peculiar harmony between these two paternal figures, one physically present but emotionally distant, the other biologically linked yet unseen, gave rise to a puzzling equilibrium, as if the cosmos had long hidden the key to the profound feeling of disjointedness I'd felt all my life. As midnight drew near, a message arrived from an unsuspecting sender, her private number seldom utilized for direct communication. I didn't intend for you to discover it in this way. It wasn't infidelity. There was someone before your father at college. When I found out I was pregnant, he proposed marriage and giving you his name. Trust me when I say he tried to love you as if you were his own. Some men cannot detach their emotions from biology. I wronged us both by concealing the truth, making it insignificant. Can we meet tomorrow? Only us? The text revealed much you've long suspected, yet uncovered depths I hadn't anticipated, painting my father as both antagonist and sufferer, bound by his own imperfections. My mother portrayed as both liar and young woman confined by choices impossible in our more tolerant times. I set the phone on the nightstand without a reply, yielding to emotional fatigue that had been sustained by adrenaline throughout the evening. Tomorrow brings difficult choices: how much truth to seek, what connections can be saved or are worth salvaging, and how my life will alter now that the foundation of seeking paternal approval has crumbled. For tonight, I allow myself the respite of emotional withdrawal, undisturbed slumber free from a lifetime's worth of questioning preceding this day of revelations. In the week following what I'd labeled as the revelation, events transpired with an unsettling duality, moving both painfully slow and disorientingly swift. Each day unveiled fresh insights that simultaneously illuminated and muddied my grasp of my role in the world. The morning after my dramatic departure, I encountered Mother at a quaint cafe distant from our usual haunts. Her look took me aback with its fragility. The strong maternal facade she typically wore was absent, replaced instead by a woman who seemed older and more genuinely human than ever before. Without any preamble, once our coffee arrived, she disclosed, "His name is Thomas Keller. We had met junior year at Wellesley. He was at MIT studying engineering, exceptionally intelligent, compassionate, yet ill-suited for a girl like me, as my parents saw it. Upon discovering our relationship, they prohibited it without delay. 2 months later, I encountered your father at a charitable event, a suitable partner that everyone endorsed. The narrative progressed like a classic movie, featuring a young woman forced to forsake genuine relationships for social climbing, discovering her pregnancy post-relationship termination. Richard Matthews proposed marriage, partially out of genuine sentiment and partly because he saw potential benefits for his business from Caroline's family ties. He vowed to treat you as his own, your mother stated, her gaze fixed on some distant past. I believe he genuinely intended to fulfill that promise. However, since the moment of your birth, you bore Thomas's eyes, his facial expressions, his inquisitive nature, a constant reminder of my life prior to him. Despite Richard's efforts, each time he looked at you, he saw another man's offspring, an undeniable testament to my past existence with someone else. For 3 hours, a hidden history unfolded with heart-wrenching clarity, revealing the family dynamic that molded my life. my biological father was unaware of me. He moved to California, established a thriving engineering firm post graduation, married, and had children who were technically my half siblings. Over the years, Mother kept tabs on his life via alumni newsletters and social media, but never reached out. She upheld the vow made to Richard that our past would stay buried. I'd be a Matthews in name, not blood. By our third cup of coffee, we had moved on to the hardest question. Why didn't you defend me? I inquired, encapsulating decades of pain into one question. You saw how he treated me differently than James and Sophia, systematically sabotaging every success, every effort to earn his approval. How could you? For 3 decades. Shall we persist with this? Her countenance contorted in a grief so deep it temporarily superseded my fury. I let you down, she conceded without any explanations. Each time I contemplated disclosing the truth, explaining why he couldn't grant what you were entitled to, the opportunity felt improper. The potential harm too immense. Time elapsed, and the falsehood expanded, becoming increasingly difficult to rectify. I convinced myself that you were robust, adaptable, constructing a life devoid of his validation. I failed to comprehend until yesterday the extent to which this ambition still propelled you. The dialogue concluded without a tidy resolution, merely signaling the commencement of a more truthful relationship that would necessitate years to reconstruct upon an honest basis. The ensuing day underwent another major transformation when I received an email from Thomas Keller, my biological father, in response to the message I'd sent following the verification of his identity through public records. His response was careful yet compassionate, revealing surprise at discovering I existed, asking for time to comprehend this information, but also genuine curiosity about connecting once he had grasped the truth of a daughter he hadn't known before. His initial message read, I understand. Based on your email signature, you work in finance in New York. He added, incidentally, I'll be in Manhattan next month for a conference. If you are comfortable with it, we could meet for coffee. This straightforward recognition of my professional status without any judgment or comparison acted as a soothing balm on my raw emotional wounds, the neutral tone implying uncontaminated potential for connection that wasn't influenced by the intricate history of Matthew. Although these personal seismic shifts altered my perception of family, the corporate world remained unfazed and moved along with its usual practical disregard towards my existential turmoil. Midweek, my supervisor contacted me with queries about a client presentation, offering unexpected comfort amidst personal turmoil by discussing work matters. She stated that the Richardson account required an explanation of my risk assessment model personally, and they had requested me specifically, Eliza, implying that my professional esteem was growing. This affirmation of independent value in the workplace underscored what should have been self-evident, that my worth wasn't dependent on family ties or Matthew's approval, but rooted in my unique abilities and character. 6 days post the reunion, Thomas made his initial contact via his lawyer, sending a rigidly formal letter demanding the return of the Mercedes and warning about potential legal action for defamatory remarks concerning paternity made publicly. The contrast between this answer and Thomas's careful yet compassionate email made clear the essence of both individuals, rendering genetics secondary to character in determining genuine lineage. I directed my lawyer to coordinate the return of the car, emphasizing that DNA evidence was inherently non-defamatory. James remained silent, his allegiance to his father unsurprising due to their strong biological link and similar perspectives. In contrast, Sophia contacted me daily, our bond strengthening through sincere discussions about the family dynamics we had both silently observed yet never openly discussed before. She commented during one late-night conversation that he had controlled the narrative of our lives, making us vie for approval that was seldom equitably given. I profited from this system, but I always noticed its harmful effects on you. I'm sorry I didn't support you more in those instances. Her admission helped mend wounds I hadn't realized were still raw. The confirmation of my lived reality by someone who was present, surprisingly more impactful than any test outcome. Half a year later, in sight, my life's terrain had undergone changes, subtly and deeply significant. Regular therapy aided in unraveling the intricate knot of love based on conditions and anxiety over performance that fueled my accomplishments, enabling me to distinguish true success from frantic search for approval. My bond with Mother evolved into something more genuine. Her calculated perfectionism discarded in favor of raw, sometimes painful dialogues about decisions, repercussions, and the intricate love that had always simmered beneath the Matthews family. Stage. I encountered Thomas Keller for the first time at a serene restaurant close to Central Park. The peculiar sensation of observing my own facial expressions and behaviors echoed in a stranger struck me as both disquieting and oddly soothing. You share my mother's analytical nature. During dessert, he remarked that our conversation had unfolded effortlessly, but the intriguing sparks over market patterns seemed to originate from him. Our bond developed gradually, both aware of its unconventional genesis, neither anticipating an immediate father-daughter intimacy. Instead, we connected through mutual intellectual pursuits and discoveries of genetic traits that mirrored my lifelong characteristics, traits never previously seen in the Matthews family. The last piece of this life's puzzle fell into place at Thanksgiving when I chose to dine with Sophia at her home instead of the usual gathering at our parents' estate. Richard declined to join when informed about my presence, his refusal now eliciting more pity than discomfort, as I continued to heal, revealing his limitations more and more. "He can't change," Sophia said as we prepared dessert, with her children playing nearby, spending time with her husband. Not refusing, but incapable. His entire persona is constructed on certainties that your presence disrupts. The statement held no criticism, merely acknowledgement of the unchangeable truth we both understood. Following dinner, Mother phoned, her voice stronger than I recalled from my childhood. The false facade of perfection replaced by genuine interaction. "I'm proud of you, Eliza," she stated plainly. "Not for your career or your home or any accomplishments, though they are impressive. I'm proud of who you are, your strength, your ability to create truth from lies. I should have told you that every day of your life." The words I'd longed for from Richard for 3 decades, freely given by the parent who had always loved me unconditionally. Her flaws resonated with healing impact precisely because they were free of stipulations or prerequisites. Upon hanging up, I understood the deepest insight gained during this 6-month trip. Family surpasses genetics and legal definitions, constituting instead those who genuinely perceive you and love you regardless, who appreciate your true self over insisting on adherence to prescribed roles. The expensive car I'd bought as a futile attempt at winning approval from an unaccepting father figure was repossessed and later sold off, the profits channeled into my future instead of wasted on fleeting validation. More crucially, I reclaimed the emotional energy spent in vain pursuing validation, channeling it towards relationships that enriched rather than drained, towards work driven by passion rather than proving myself, and building a life assessed by inner satisfaction rather than external fame. The path from that momentous family dinner to this fresh equilibrium was not straightforward or easy. Each day presented new hurdles and occasional setbacks, but the direction remained unwaveringly towards healing rather than causing more harm. It wasn't the monumental epiphanies that signified growth, but the tranquil Tuesday mornings when I woke up without instantly evaluating my worth, when achievements were appreciated for their inherent worth instead of being a ticket to finally gain paternal acceptance, when life was experienced from an authentic core, rather than out of desperate performance. As Thanksgiving night drew to a close, I recognized that while the enigma of my paternity had been unveiled, what truly mattered was its significance lessening with every step towards self-acceptance. The question of whose genes I possessed held little weight compared to whose values I embraced, whose love I accepted sincerely, whose truth I adopted as mine. Have you ever realized that a true family isn't only bound by blood? At times, those supposed to offer us unconditional love can inflict the deepest wounds. Share your experiences about forming your own chosen family or asserting yourself against those blind to your worth in the comments below. If my tale touched a chord within you, please click like, subscribe for more accounts of healing, and share with someone in need of understanding that their worth is independent of others' validation. I appreciate your attention. And remember, sometimes reclaiming power involves leaving those who never deserved it from the start.